Yeah, so that was, so one translation I read was Swami Ramsukdas, second one was Satyavrat Siddhanta Lankar. Now third translation I'm going to read, or same Karmanye Vadikaraste, it is the Hari Gita. Hari Gita is translated by Pandit Dinesh, Dinanath Dinesh. तो दीनानाथ दिनेश जी क्या बोलते हैं, जरा सुनिएगा।
अच्छा,
तो उनका अलग ही फंडा है। अधिकार केवल कर्म करने का, नहीं फल की कभी, होना तो ना फल हेतु भी, मत छोड़ो देना कर्म कभी। तो दिस इज इन दोहा फॉर्म।
अच्छा, लिबर्टी।
हाँ, फिर मैं एक और निकालता हूँ हिंदी ट्रांसलेशन। आज मैंने पूरा हिंदी ट्रांसलेशन रखा है सुनील जी के लिए। वो हमारे रेजिडेंट पोएट हैं, तो रेजिडेंट पोएट साहब के लिए मैंने कहा कुछ किया जाए। तो 47, now this is a translation, it is a very unusual translation, it is in चौपाई form। कर्म कर में तब अधिकारा, कर्म करन में तब अधिकारा, फल का कभी न करो विचारा, फल की वासना देहु हटाई, कर्म करो तुम मन चित लाई। This is a translation by, I'll tell you, this is स्वामी ज्वाला प्रकाश जी, जो कि उदासीन मत के हैं। उदासीन जो कि नानक देव के जो एक सुपुत्र थे, उनसे आया हुआ परंपरा है। ठीक है, और चौथा, पांचवा, 1 2 3 4 5, पांचवा जो है मैं आपको सुनाता हूँ, और छठा भी है लेकिन वो उसकी किताब नहीं निकाल पाया मैं। तो 47, तो ये जो है, ये मैं बताता हूँ किसने अनुवाद किया है। ये हमारे हैं, इनका नाम है स्वामी शिव शंकर सिंह अनाम, और इनका जो हाँ, इनका जो अनुवाद है उसका नाम है गीत गोविंद गीता। तो इन्होंने लिखा है समत कहाँ गया, 47, है कर्म आधार सूत्र, अधिकार मात्र कर्म निस्वार्थ, न करो कर्म फल की चिंता, कर्महीन न बनो हे पार्थ, है कर्म करने की स्वतंत्रता, अनाधिकृत फल चाहना स्वार्थ, मनुष्य की करे सारे कर्म, मनुष्य ही करे सारे कर्म, अस्तित्व से फल फले निस्वार्थ। ये किताब है। तो इसका जो है, ये किताब है गीत गोविंद, और इसमें जो है हमारे अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी ने जब प्राइम मिनिस्टर थे, he's written a comment, प्रिय शिव शंकर सिंह, आपने काव्य रचना ओम गीता गीत गोविंद गीता की प्राप्ति हुई, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। आपने श्रीमद् भगवत गीता को गीत गोविंद के रूप में सरल हिंदी में लयबद्ध करके सराहनीय कार्य किया है। आपकी यह सुंदर कृति निश्चय ही जनमानस के लिए बहुत उपयोगी सिद्ध होगी, ऐसा मेरा विश्वास है। मैं इस भगीरथ प्रयास के लिए आपको साधुवाद देता हूँ। क्या हिंदी है?
ये गीत गोविंद तो वैसे जयदेव की बहुत फेमस है, जयदेव की।
जी जी जी। तो
वो जो उन्होंने कृष्णा और उनके स्टोरीज बताई हैं,
हाँ,
वो गीत गोविंद कहलाती है जनरली।
जी जी। तो उन्होंने उससे कुछ इंस्पिरेशन लिया, कहाँ इंस्पिरेशन लिया मालूम नहीं, मे बी इट इज इन द रिदम, मे बी इट इज इन, नॉट ऑब्वियसली क्योंकि ट्रांसलेशन है तो
बिकॉज गोविंद इज नेम ऑफ कृष्णा, तो उन्होंने ये मतलब गोविंद का जो गीता वाला एस्पेक्ट है वो लिख दिया है, जबकि गीत गोविंद जो है इज ए बेसिकली रोमांटिक पोएम बिटवीन कृष्णा एंड राधा।
करेक्ट करेक्ट करेक्ट, दैट्स देयर इन संस्कृत एंड इट इज अ वेरी फेमस पोएम। अलग अलग राग में है, अलग अलग राग में लोग गाते हैं। तो सर लगता है कि आज सिर्फ आप और राजेश हैं, और तो कोई आया नहीं।
अच्छा, वो could you also read the presentation I had sent you?
Yes, sir, I read it. It is a very well put together presentation, and I mean आपका तो PowerPoint capabilities तो कमाल के हैं।
नहीं, मुझे गीता कैपेबिलिटीज बढ़ानी है। PowerPoint तो इज जस्ट अ टूल ना, उसकी कैपेबिलिटी तो यूज होती है मैसेजिंग के लिए, कम्युनिकेशन के लिए बेसिकली।
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल।
लीजिए
तो
सुनील आ
सुनील
गए।
जी नमस्कार।
हेलो, नमस्कार।
नमस्कार, गुड मॉर्निंग।
नमस्कार नमस्कार।
मॉर्निंग
सर बैंगलोर की हवा में चमक रहे हैं, दिख रहा है।
हाँ,
अरे वाह, सच में सच बोल रहे हो
बैंगलोर
भाई।
की हवा तो वाकई में अच्छी है।
गार्डन सिटी की चमक दिख रही है। ठीक,
हाँ नहीं,
गार्डन
आई
गार्डन हो
ऑलवेज
रहा है,
एंजॉयड स्टेइंग इन बैंगलोर।
दिल बाग बाग हो गया है जैसे।
वैसे मैं जो AQI रीडिंग देखता हूँ रोज, उसमें इनफैक्ट नोएडा का AQI भी बेंगलोर से खराब नहीं है आजकल। AQI के मामले में बेंगलोर में भी पोल्यूशन काफी है, पर्टिकुलरली साउथ बेंगलोर में।
नहीं, साउथ बैंगलोर क्या सभी तरफ है बैंगलोर में पोल्यूशन एवरीवेयर। वो ट्रैफिक इतना ज्यादा है, इतना कंजेशन है, और पतली पतली रोड्स हैं, और सिटी हैज नॉट बीन प्लान प्रॉपर्ली।
इनफैक्ट
लखनऊ में तो क्या है, कोई धंधा पानी ही नहीं है, तो इसलिए लखनऊ में सब अपना वेल्ले रहते हैं। जिसको वेल्ले बोलते हैं। लखनऊ इज ओल्ड पीपल सेटलमेंट टाउन।
पहले बैंगलोर भी ऐसे ही था, फिर IT के आने के बाद तो एकदम बदल गया। पहले तो बैंगलोर वाज अ रिटायरमेंट पैराडाइज, जिन लोगों को ऐसे ही था। मैसूर भी वैसे था, और अभी जो है मैसूर भी एकदम IT सिटी बन गया है, और अभी जो है दे आर गोइंग टू बिल्ड अ 8-lane expressway between Mysore and Bangalore. So, as such, it is only 2 hours. You can cover now in 45 minutes or 1 hour. It will be very fast.
Oh.
So it will be super. So I wanted to share with Sunil ji the story of Geeta Makaran. You had sent a message yesterday, right, Sunil ji? So let me share with you. So I have 2 editions of Geeta Makaran. एक तो ये जो है ये एकदम पुराना एडिशन है, एंड ये मैंने लिया था, मैं आपको डेट दिखा देता हूँ यहाँ पे, बैंगलोर 1988, बैंगलोर स्टेशन, ओके 1988 लिखा है अक्टूबर, ठीक है। तो इसकी मैं स्टोरी बताता हूँ। क्या है कि मैं एक्चुअली माय कंपनी, आई वाज देन वर्किंग फॉर यूनियन कार्बाइड, and my company had sent me to IIM Bangalore for a materials management course. And obviously in those days, since I was a junior most, I was sent by train. So when I was returning back, I went to this bookshop in the railway station, and I found this Geeta Makaran, very old edition. And when I looked into it, I liked it a lot. But it so happened I did not see the book actually cost then only 50 rupees. Okay. Price of the book was 52 rupees. I did not have 52 rupees with me. Okay. So I did not have 50 rupees. I was on my last 10 rupees or something like that. तो मुझे पता था कि ये बुक अगर चली जाएगी तो फिर कब बैंगलोर आएंगे, कहाँ मिलेगा, because it was not the day where you can search in the net and find. So you have to always be ready to buy a book. That was always my motto. तो आप मानेंगे नहीं सर, I convinced that shopkeeper to give me the Geeta copy. I said when I go to Bangalore, when I go to Hyderabad, I will money order it to you. तो वो money order का मेरे पास अब भी है.
My goodness.
My goodness.
That's really great. That's really great.
उसने मेरी बात भी मान ली, और पता नहीं कैसे उसने दिया. I really don't know. आजकल तो कोई देगा भी नहीं, correct? So this is actually the first Gita where I really understood, because it's in very great detail. Every shloka is explained, every word is explained, themes are given. In fact, as I was sharing with Sunil ji, the breakup of the shlokas that I've given you, while the insight that I've given you is from Ram Shankar Tiwari ji, the shloka breakup that I have at the beginning of each chapter is from this book. So this is by Swami Vidya Prakashananda. Very, very good book. You will really appreciate and sort of love it. So,
but it is a very thick book. Very thick book.
Okay, so 1 minute. We'll also extend a little bit. So what I want to also share with you. So that was the 1988 edition that I showed you, or that is the I got it in 1988, but the edition itself is, I think, published. This is 1980 edition is the edition that I have. So it's nearly 41 years old. Now the latest edition looks like this actually. It is in a different format altogether. Okay. So I'd asked my friend. Hi Rakesh.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
I asked my friend to get it for me, and he got it for me. Then that very friend, he got it from the original place where it is published. So that is the Sukabrahma Ashram, which is near Tirupati. Then he gave it to me for New Year, because they go to Tirupati every New Year. So I said, you go to that particular ashram near Tirupati and you buy it for me. And he got it for me. And I made him write, purchase for Rajshekhar on 1/1/2017. Okay. Then what happened is that, so this is the second, it's got better print and all that. Then what happened is that in October of 2017, I found this same person in deep depression. So I told him that, look, you purchased this book for me. I paid you the money, but I'm gifting the book to you since I already have the old edition. So मैंने ये किताब उनको दे दिया मैंने कहा आप रखो, और वो भी मैंने पीछे रिकॉर्ड किया अक्टूबर 2017 को मैंने उनको दे दिया. That is 10 months after his getting. Then what he did is in January of 2019, he returned it back to me saying, Rajshekhar, I have read it and I'm returning it to you. This is your property. So ultimately, I'm now having 2 copies of this book, one the latest edition and other the old edition. But the old edition is what I have, if you look at it, it is all marked, underlined and everything. I have done all the underlining in all the pages. So, it is a book worth studying. But anyway, I was just sharing the information about this book.
आज इस सुबह से इस आश्रम से मेरे पास फोन आना शुरू हो गया और इन्होंने बहुत सारे लिंक मुझे भेज डाले. कल मैंने अमेज़न पे ऑर्डर किया. यूजुअली अमेज़न पे ऑर्डर होने के बाद ऐसा कुछ नहीं आता, सीधे मटेरियल आता है. बट आज आश्रम से बहुत सारे लिंक और व्हाट्सएप इनवाइट मेरे पास ऑलरेडी आ चुके हैं कि आप अब इसमें डीपर और जाइए. और सुबह फोन भी आया. तो मतलब ऑलरेडी दे हैव गॉट होल्ड ऑफ मी कि भाई ये आदमी गीता मकरंद में इंटरेस्टेड है, तो लाओ इसको आप पकड़ ले. तो ये मिल गया उनको अब.
The only thing is it will all be in Telugu because the original version is in Telugu.
उनके बहुत सारे व्हाट्सएप तेलुगु में भी आए हैं, बट इंग्लिश ट्रांसलेशंस भी आए हैं उसके.
करेक्ट. ओके.
बट मैंने हिंदी कॉपी मंगाई है, उसकी हिंदी ट्रांसलेशन मंगाया. मेरे पास ऑलरेडी एक ट्रांसलेशन पीडीएफ में नेट पे मुझे मिल गया था. तो अगर आप लोगों को औरों को चाहिएगा तो मैं पीडीएफ कॉपी अभी ग्रुप में डाल दूंगा उस किताब की.
I think that would be better.
वो सर्चेबल नहीं है, बट जो जैसे राज ने बताया, जो इंडेक्स अभी हम पढ़ रहे हैं आजकल, वो इंडेक्स वगैरह उसमें दिख जाती है. आपको चैप्टर वाइज किस पेज पे जाना है ये मिल जाएगा इंडेक्स से देखकर, तो आप पीडीएफ में उस पेज पे जाके पढ़ सकते हैं.
ओके.
बट बहुत डिटेल्ड है. ठीक है, आप जो अभी तक बातें पढ़ रहे थे उसका भी रेफरेंसेस मिलेगा, बट उनके डिस्कोर्सेस भी मिलेंगे और काफी डिटेल मिलेगा. और उसमें मंत्र को बार बार पढ़ने की भी सलाह दी गई है. आपको ये भी कहा गया है कि इसको पढ़ना भी है. मतलब अभी हम जैसे उसका मीनिंग ही खाली समझने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, बट उसमें मंत्रोच्चारण की भी बात कही गई है और बार बार उसकी बात समझाई गई है.
इट्स अ कंप्लीट बुक, ऊपर से लेके नीचे तक जो भी आपको सीखना है भगवत गीता के बारे में. एटलीस्ट ये स्वामी विद्या प्रकाशानंद, ही वाज वेरी पॉपुलर स्पीकर इन तेलुगु, एंड सिंस ही वाज वेरी पॉपुलर,
मैं ये सोचता हूँ कि ये मंत्रोच्चारण जो है वो भी आपको अपने ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन में मदद करता है. तो जो चीज हम सीखना चाह रहे हैं, वो सीखने के लिए जो हम लर्निंग खाली मीनिंग की कर रहे हैं, उसके अलावा मंत्रोच्चारण भी कुछ उसमें रोल प्ले करेगा, अगर हम अपने लिए मंत्रोच्चारण सीख लें एटलीस्ट.
सर मैं आपको एक जो है हकीकत बताता हूँ. इन बिटवीन 2013 and 2018, I will say 5 years, I was going through lot of personal and professional turmoil. Personal and professional इतना turmoil कि बोल नहीं सकते. Okay, so I got out of the entire thing and I'm in the frame of mind that you're seeing me now because I did 2 things. One is I chanted Vishnu Sahasranamam every day. And the second one is I had a schedule of chanting the Bhagavad Gita, which is you can chant the Bhagavad Gita in 7 days. There's a sequence, 2 chapters first day, 3 chapters second day, 3 chapters third day, and so on and so forth till you're able to complete it. So this I did continuously for 5 years. So at least I have the confidence of talking about the Gita only because I chanted it. I did not understand. Now, I am also understanding as I'm reading now, but at that point in time, I could not understand and chant and do both the things at the same time. So आप जो कह रहे हैं 100% true है. मंत्रोच्चारण में, श्लोक उच्चारण में बहुत फायदा है. तो कम से कम श्लोक के का जो उच्चारण है वो इंटरनलाइज हो जाता है और आगे जाके जो आप समझेंगे तो समझना भी आसान हो जाता है. सो दिस इज माय पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस.
मैं सिंपल एग्जांपल इसका ये दूंगा कि जब हम पढ़ने बैठते हैं तो अपनी टेबल क्लीन करते हैं तो उस पर किताब रखते हैं. तो हम जैसे अगर गीता के बारे में मीनिंग समझने बैठ रहे हैं तो मंत्रोच्चारण हमारे माइंड की क्लीनिंग है. सिंपल.
बिल्कुल.
तो वो भी उतनी ही इम्पोर्टेंट है, तब हमें समझ में अच्छा आएगा.
No, in fact, when I conduct my classes for the other batches, we start with the mantrocharan because I take 2 shlokas per class. तो सबसे पहले वो दोनों मंत्र जो भी श्लोक हैं उसका उच्चारण करते हैं, फिर आगे उसका मीनिंग करते हैं, जैसा आप कह रहे हैं.
इसकी इम्पोर्टेंस की वजह से उस पर शपथ दिलाई जाती थी शायद कि मैं सच बोलूंगा. तो दिस इज अ पावरफुल मींस. गीता पे हाथ रख के कसम लेता हूँ. दिस वाज मतलब गीता इज दैट मच प्योर मींस इट गोस डायरेक्टली टू द हार्ट.
मूवीज जैसे मैं गीता के ऊपर कसम खाता हूँ कि सच के सिवाय सब कुछ बोलूंगा. Fortunately.
That is exception.
Very sad.
Everything has got exception.
Okay.
But actually गीता यूनिवर्सली एक्सेप्टेड बुक है. एटलीस्ट मतलब ये सोचा जाता था कि कोई क्रिमिनल होगा तो उसको भी कुछ तो गिल्ट मन में आएगा अगर गीता के ऊपर हाथ रखा है. बिकॉज उसको मतलब संस्कार वाइज एक्सेप्टेबल तो है ही है. More universally acceptable than any other book.
That meaning we should take.
So the only one person who didn't swear on the Gita and yet is a national hero is Udham Singh. He swore on Heer Ranjha. If you see the movie, you will realize.
Yes. I just saw that movie. Only 2 days back I saw that movie, and it's true. That episode has been shown there.
So Rakesh must be thinking that these guys are only gossiping like this throughout the time.
No, not at all. Not at all.
यार राकेश तुम्हारा पिछली बार तो ऑडियो आया ही नहीं. समझ में नहीं आया कि तुम ज्वाइन तो करे पर ऑडियो नहीं आया.
नहीं पिछली बार मैं टेक्निकलिटी में फंस गया. इस बार मैं ठीक करके रखा हूँ. तो मतलब आज भी मैं सुन सकूंगा और वीडियो से आई विल ड्रॉप आउट आफ्टर सम टाइम. नेक्स्ट वीक से आई विल ज्वाइन क्योंकि अभी तक इस हफ्ते मेरी ट्रेनिंग चलेगी तो फिर खत्म हो जाएगा.
So you can start now.
Yeah, I'm starting.
Go ahead, Rajesh.
So we will look at chapter 11. I'm going to put the presentation up. Now, so chapter 11 is a very interesting chapter as it comes, at the end of the sequence of chapters from 7. So 7th chapter, 8th chapter, 9th chapter, 10th chapter. Of course, we know that the second part of the Gita from 7 to 12 is about bhakti. So in the 11th chapter, we find that most of the knowledge that had to be given has been given to Arjuna, and Arjuna also, appeals intelligently to Bhagavan to demonstrate a little more what he means. Now, when we say demonstrate a little more, when I was doing this for the other batches, what Arjuna says is he gives a status report of his understanding. And from the way he speaks of his level of understanding, he has no doubts. He says what you say about yourself is very true. And therefore he appeals between shloka 1 and 4 to Bhagavan, saying that, look, all that you told me from chapter 7 to chapter 10 is true, and it is accepted, and all the Maharshis and all the wise sages of India accept what you say. They've also realized what you say. And therefore, please show me your form. So this is something which is perplexing to understand what do you mean by form, because at least our image is that of Krishna in a human dimension, as a charioteer of Arjuna, also obviously in a human dimension. So what do you mean by cosmic form is a question. So having read through 3 or 4 important commentaries, the way in which we can visualize this whole aspect of the cosmic form is like something that we do as engineers in one sense. So let us say that we have created a system. The system could be an electrical system, a mechanical system, a software program, which is obviously consisting of number of routines. And if you are the architect, you would understand how each subsystem relates to the other and works together. And therefore, when there is a problem in the system, you are called upon to, I mean, if people are not able to solve it, the architect or the designer is the one who understands the interrelationship between the systems, the speed at which the systems work. Some work faster. When I say system, I mean subsystem now within the overall framework. So it is somewhat similar in nature, in terms of the question. So Bhagavan says that yes, he can obviously, having given all the knowledge. Now, you would not be able to understand the subsystems till you have some knowledge. Now, I may understand mechanical subsystems, but I may not understand electrical subsystems or any other subroutines that are there in embedded systems or in software or whatever areas of work that we as professionals have specialized in. So I need special training. So in the same way, Bhagavan says between shloka 5 and 8 that yes, I can tell you, but I'll have to give you divya chakshu, divyam dadami chakshu. आप ये स्थूल चक्षु से नहीं देख सकते हैं जो आपके जो आंखें हैं. They cannot see. In other words, you need to have special intuition to be able to understand how these subsystems work. And he says that because you're my bhakta, you're my shishya, I'm going to give you divyam chakshu. Now, the divyam chakshu we can simply understand in our context from our frame of reference to be intuition, faith combined together. So you see, when you're in a heightened mood of wanting to learn, you are able to learn. But if you're in a mood of wanting to find fault, you will never learn. So that is what is being mentioned between shloka 1 and, shloka 5 and 8. So 1 to 4 is the question from Arjuna broadly, a status report of his knowledge. And the question, I want to see your full systems working, universal system, which is called the cosmic form. And then at the 8th shloka, Bhagavan says, "Main aapko dikha dunga." I will show this. And I thought I will and then he says, yeah, please see it. So the granting of the Divya Chakshu is instantaneous or simultaneous with so it's like a switch being put on. You see, if a room is in darkness, the moment the switch is on, you can see what is the room. So the moment the Divya Chakshu is given to Arjuna, immediately he's able to see. So it is not that Krishna has transformed himself, but it is simply that Krishna in his cosmic form was always there, but could not be seen by Arjuna because his switch was not on. So the switch was put on, the Divya Chakshu. So obviously, while Arjuna is in the process of grappling and understanding what he's seeing, there is Sanjay, who's the meta observer. He's behind and he's the one who is reporting all this to Dhritarashtra, as we know. So he describes the Vishwarupa Darshan initially. And then Arjuna takes over and Arjuna describes the Vishwarupa Darshan. So let me read out to you, some of these shlokas that are there. They are actually very beautiful poetry also, as well as they are, indicative of some of the attributes that we read in the 10th chapter. So these are found on earth, Ihaloka, Prithvi Loka, and these are found in Paraloka, Swarga Loka, or, there are 7 lokas, Bhu, Bhuvaha, Swaha, Maha, Jana. These are the traditional hierarchical categorizations of the lokas that are to be sort of experienced. So just to give you an idea as to what Arjuna is describing, let me say, I see the devas in your body, and I see the assemblage of all other beings, the Brahma. I see you with multiple arms, multiple bellies, multiple mouths. I see mace, I see discus, chakra dikta hai, gada dikta hai. So there are a lot of things that he sees, and then he says that you are the supreme imperishable, and so on and so forth. So there is a huge vision that Arjuna gets, or rather is able to absorb, and then he starts praying to Bhagavan. He prays to Bhagavan because the 31st, the last shloka in that row, which is the vision and prayer, he says, I don't understand who you are. He says, Akhyahi me ko bhavan ugra rupo namostu te devavara prasida vigyatum janna ichhami, I want to, bhavantam adyam abhi aaj nahi prajanami, I do not understand, tava pravrittim, what's your nature, I don't understand. So tell me, who are you? Because I find all these various things, all these subsystems of the universe in the form of the Adityas, the Vasus, the Devas, the various, 33 crore Devas, the stars, the moon, everything is to be somehow visualized as a subsystem that Arjuna is able to comprehend. It's not that it is physically, present like a mechanism within. Our typical images that we have will show one outline of Krishna and all kinds of things within the outline. It's only a metaphorical way of saying. It is not obviously the physicality of the matter. So Arjuna, at the end of that initial description of his, says, boss, who are you? Then comes a very interesting, so this is the place where Bhagavan talks for the first time, 32 to 34, after the cosmic vision. Of course, 5 to 8, he agrees to give the cosmic vision, but in 32 to 34, he says, I am Kala, Kalo Asmi, Loka Kshayakrit Pravruddho, Ritepi Tvam Na Bhavishyati. So I am, Kala, and my job is to obviously supervise the universe and also create it, destroy it. So that's the Ugra Rupa that he talks about. And then he also says that, look, you don't have to be worried because your victory is assured. Don't be under the impression that because of this great cosmic form that I'm showing and that you're getting frightened, I'm not on your side. I am very much on your side. So then 35 to 46, which is row number 6 that we find here. Again, Arjuna breaks into a description, and then he says that I'm so sorry. I thought that you were just a friend of mine. I never knew that you are this big boss of the universe. So whenever I have been playing around with you, fooling around with you, I'm so sorry. He goes into that mode of suddenly realizing that he's been talking to the boss of the universe and he's not been giving, or he didn't in his conversation give due respect to him. And then he says, boss, this is too much for me. I'm not able to digest this vision. I mean, it's okay for some time. So I want to see your normal form. So that's what he ends. So we have an interesting sequence of Arjuna's responses. In the 4th row, you see, after his own description, he says, boss, who are you? Then in the 5th row, Bhagavan says who he is. Then 6th row, again, he goes into a praise mode, but with a kind of fear. So, and then he ends by saying, boss, this is too much for me to stomach, and I want to see your normal form. So then Bhagavan says that this big form of mine, this super system that you have seen is not something that everybody can see. Therefore, consider yourself lucky. And then he assumes his normal form, or rather the Divya Chakshu, the sharpened, heightened sense that Arjuna has is reduced, and he looks at Krishna as he is. And then we have in the 55th shloka, 55th shloka is more or less, you can see, it is a summary of the Gita in terms of what it says. So let me read that shloka for you. And then many commentators indicate that 1155 comes at the end of a very important chapter of the Gita, and it also kind of summarizes the Gita. So he says, Mat karma krun mat paramo mad bhaktah sanga varjitah nirvairah sarva bhuteshu yah sah mameti pandava. So mat karma, so it is do all your work for me. Mat, mere liye karm karo. Mat karma krun mat paramo, right? Regard me as your goal. Okay. Mad bhakta, become my bhakta. Sangha varjita. Sangha is association, correct? Like sat sangha is association with sattvic people. So sangha varjita. So here sangha is used in a different sense. It means do not have attachment. So that's the next message. Nirvairaha. Now all are a part of the universal. All are amshas, parts of the universal. Therefore, किससे क्या वैर करोगे? It is like being a wary of your, no, you are not angry with your finger. Correct. So in the same way, all of us are having the Atma, which is the same, and therefore we should be nirvaira. Sarva bhuteshu, and if you are having all these qualities, saha mameti pandava, he will attain me. So ultimately, in the Sanatana Dharma tradition, all of us would want to attain the feet of the Lord, or to put it in a little more graphic way, the Amsha, the Atma within us, has to merge with the Paramatma. This is a phrase that we hear very, very often in all the Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga traditions. So that is what the 55th, shloka indicates. And we can see that this is, in fact, the third longest chapter, as I had mentioned. 78 shlokas long is the last chapter, 72 shlokas long is the second chapter, and after that comes this 55 shloka long 11th chapter. So usually what happens is this, so there are some chapters which are, if you cannot find time to chant the entire Gita, ideally you should chant 18 chapters a day, but it takes 1 hour 45 minutes. You may or may not have time. Then the recommendation for chanting of the chapters, not the individual shlokas. Individual shlokas, there are a number of collections. So typically the recommendation is that you should chant the 15th chapter, which is 20 shlokas before eating food. That's the tradition. And in the morning, you should chant the 11th chapter of 55 shlokas. If you can do just these two things, you will get, I think, the benefit of chanting the entire Bhagavad Gita is the traditional understanding of the Gita. So let's now move to Ram Shankar. So this is simply a breakdown of the chapter, and it's important. Otherwise, what happens is that when you simply go into a Gita book where they give you shloka after shloka, you're not able to put the puzzle of the chapter together. So when you look at each of those rows and the stack that we have of the shlokas, it gives you an overview. It's like a subsystem that we are creating here. Now let's look at some of the insights from Ram Shankar Tiwari for the benefit of Rakesh. He was a director in one of the CSIR labs in Lucknow called the Center of Paleobotany or Paleobiology. A very eminent scientist, a lot of publications. So he's published a book called The Yoga of the Gita, where he's given his understanding of the Gita, and I picked up the insights of the Gita here. So we have, I think, about nine or 10 insights, which I'll simply read out and explain where, it's kind of required. So Krishna reveals the cosmic form to Arjuna, comprehensible only by the grace of the Almighty. This is an indication of the Divya Chakshu that was given. All creation rushes towards death, and again, all is recreated through a cyclical system. So this is, of course, based on the response of Krishna to Arjuna in terms of who he was. Then one of the consequences, or one of the learnings from that revelation, is that time is all powerful and all exist in time and all are annihilated in time, which we understand. Then we have the Supreme is revered and worshipped by all centers of power in the universe. This has a reference to all the Devas, the Vasus, the Rudras, the Adityas. So all of them are aware of the importance of the Supreme. Now, Supreme is simply defined as Supreme. Of course, here we have Krishna manifesting as the Supreme, but the Supreme is simply the Supreme called Brahman. Now, point number 5 is in the cosmic pattern exists Brahmaji, all the godheads, worldly beings, sages, brightness of 1,000 suns, and totality of glory. Of course, when we had earlier done Bhakti Yoga, I recall mentioning particularly Shloka 12, which talks about the brightness of this cosmic form as equivalent to 1,000 suns, which was the shloka chanted by Robert Oppenheimer in the first testing of the nuclear device. It's called the Manhattan Project, if you recall, the nuclear physics section of the physics that we learned. So this is the shloka that get quoted, the 12th one, you can look it up, 12th shloka of the 11th chapter. Then the next insight is exterior and interior worlds in which we live with all wonders of life and nature, thoughts are all flashes. So the cosmic form is behind everything that we do. And it's also a little difficult because while on one hand we can see the world in front of us, the unseen, the intangible is limitless, timeless, spaceless, deathless, formless, with stupendous beauty, power, glory, serenity, and capability. So how can something timeless have power? So these are all the contradictions that are being resolved. So the dualities that we speak about are resolved in the form of, so you can see both day and night. You cannot see day and night at the same time because one means the other is absent, but in the form you can see pairs of opposites, and therefore that's why it's called a cosmic form. Now coming to the next 8, 9, and 10, even intellectual conceptualization of the cosmic power may make us uneasy and restless. Therefore, a more worldly form is meditated upon, which our mind is well acquainted, or formless reality can be meditated. So, you see, how can you meditate upon something that is timeless, deathless, spaceless, and all the lessons that we saw in the previous insight? Therefore, we have a form. We say, O Krishna, or O Shiva, or O Vishnu, because it's something that the human mind can grasp. See, we always find abstract mathematics difficult because, it's not something that you can visualize. Whereas arithmetic is easy, it can be visualized because obviously it deals with counting. So arithmetic may be the saguna because the numbers can be visualized, and obviously when you come to complex numbers, real numbers, and what's that? I can't recall now the mathematics. Irrational numbers, they are not easily visualizable. And it's a simple example. Of course, the cosmic power is more tangible than even what I have indicated. Then 9 and 10 is reflection of the cosmic person are strewn all around us. So we must adore them by becoming loving, friendly, respectful, compassionate towards all creatures. So you actually, once you understand the subsystems that function in the universe, you will never ever have, a Vaira Bhavana deliberately with anybody. You see, you will. And of course, that does not mean that evil will not be there, but the evil will be taken care of by Bhagavan himself. So at the end, when we looked at the 55th shloka, and it being the summary, what he says is, perform action for me and make me the goal of your life. So it's a very, very simple direction that is given. Make me the goal of your life and everything else will fall in place. Most of the struggles in life that we have are when we are unable to reaffirm the goal of life. So Shri Bhagavan, and then of course there is this broad summary which indicates the universality of Bhagavan, which is look at the rising sun and you will see a ray of his cosmic form. Look at a smiling baby, you will see a glow of his cosmic form. Look at the flow of your thoughts and you will meet the dynamic silence, which is the brilliance of his cosmic form. So cosmic form is simply a system's view of the matter, is how I would put it in the language that we are familiar with. And that is the way, in fact, it is useful to understand it that way because people don't really, non-engineers do not understand. Of course, doctors understand human systems very well. So doctors, engineers, lawyers, professionals who have a body of professional knowledge understand the interrelationship between the subarticles or the subsystems or the clauses that are there, and therefore are able to understand and comprehend better what was intended in this chapter. So we are at 12:10 now. I think this 12th chapter is a simpler chapter. It will not take too much time. So we would be sticking to, and I'll finish it in 5 minutes. And then we can have a discussion for about 15-20 minutes. So after this stupendous, huge description that we have of the Vishwarupa Darshan, Arjuna asks a basic question, which is, should I pray to the tangible or should I pray to the intangible? So thoughts about the divine with form and without form. Without form, and Bhagavan says, it is the rare intellectual who will be able to pray to the divine without form, Nirguna Brahma. And most of us feel comfortable and are within the limits of our, not limits, I would say, within the scope of our mental faculties, mental boundaries, when we are able to visualize Saguna Brahma, which is with a form. So that's the question that is asked, and Bhagavan gives his answer to that, saying that no doubt Nirguna is very attractive intellectually, but people usually find it difficult. And then now this is on pure Bhakti Yoga. So there is the excellence of Bhakti Yoga that he speaks about between Shloka 6 and 8. And this is the favorite of all the Vaishnava traditions. See, Vaishnava traditions, like ISKCON, of course, you have Vaishnava traditions in South India also, which is in Udupi, which is the Vaishnava tradition from Madhvacharya. Then you have the Krishna tradition in Guruvayur, where you have a very famous temple called Guruvayur Temple, where you have Krishna. So there are a lot of Krishna and Vaishnava traditions. So for them, this chapter is the most important chapter, and this chapter, again, being 20. So there are two 20 shloka chapters. The 15th one, which traditionally is on the Nirguna Brahman, and this is on Saguna Brahman, or the importance of Bhakti Yoga. So the excellence of Bhakti Yoga. And then there are spiritual practices, in a graded form. He says, in fact, I think that is what I would like to read out. So I'll just pull out, because it is helpful to understand the way in which Bhagavan has graded the practices. So just give me a minute, I'm just pulling it out. So he says, here we are, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So I'm going to read the English translation of shlokas 8, 9, so 9 to 12. So he says, fix your mind on me, let your intellect be absorbed in me, and there's no doubt that you would reach me. If you're unable to fix your mind on me, then do yoga of abhyasa, do constant practice. This abhyasa yoga will help you reach me. If you're not able to do abhyasa, this is the 10th shloka, then please perform all your activities with me in mind. Even if you cannot do this, this is the 11th one, then just resort to doing yoga for me, just do it for Krishna. So there are various levels at which Bhakti Yoga can be practiced, and that is what has been indicated here. And then from 13 to 20, we have a description of all the qualities. So it's like a list of qualities that a Bhakta should have. So let me just read to you some of the qualities that have been indicated by Bhagavan there. So he says, okay, Adveshta, that is you're without hatred. You're Maitraha, you are friendly. Karunaha, you are compassionate. Nirmamaha, you are without egoism. Nirahankara, you are without ahankara. Samadukha, you are without the imbalance caused by sukha and dukkha. So in that fashion, we have qualities of a bhakta which go all the way up to shloka 20. So this is an important chapter, the whole chapter for bhakti yogis. And therefore, what are some of the insights? The yoga of desireless action is best for worldly people. Desireless action, right? So you're not into sannyasa, you are very much a grahastha. It liberates one from the grip of anxiety about the future. Meditate regularly on a personal form of the God. So this is the Bhakti Yoga format. This ensures assimilation of pure consciousness into your being, leading to bliss. Of course, pure consciousness is the nirguna part, but you approach the nirguna through the saguna. That's the idea behind insight 2. Then insight 3 is concentration of form, the formless being. Of course, if you're able to directly focus, as they do in Jnana Yoga and Advaita Vedanta is point number 3. Concentration on the formless supreme dispels the wild dance of thoughts and expands your being. Knowledge about the changing pattern of creation against the backdrop of unchanging supreme and also our eternal Atman and all-pervading Brahman must be sparked within. So this is again talking about nirguna prayer. We must cultivate the quality of a perfect devotee at all levels of personality. Then at the body level, observe cleanliness, abandon addictions, so these are all the qualities of a bhakta. At the level of the mind, be friendly to all. At the intellectual level, work with skill. At the ego level, be free of anger, let awareness. So, this forms a very logical sequence of qualities at each level. So we have the hierarchy, Deha, which is the body, then Indriya, which are the senses, next level. Then you have the Manas, which is the mind. Then you have the Buddhi, which is the intellect. And then you have the Atma. So for each level, certain qualities have to be developed. And that is what has been mentioned here. So I'm going to stop the share and we can open up for discussion. So let me begin with Vishnu.
I think you can take Vishnu first. I think he has to leave. He had given a message.
Yeah. That's why I said Vishnu. Sir, you're on mute. Vishwarup, you're on mute. Please unmute yourself. Vishwarup, you are still on mute. We can't hear you.
Okay. Yeah, now can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Actually, whatever little I have understood is first 6 chapters were on yoga. I mean, what should I say? Jnana yoga and maybe the technical part, karma yoga and everything. Jnana yoga, karma yoga, and practice of karma yoga through meditation and other things. And then we have come to a phase of bhakti yoga now. After 6 chapters, 7 to 10. And 11th chapter is about Krishna's form and how Krishna directly talks. He gives himself, he tells the world, he tells everybody, rather when he addresses Arjuna, he means he's addressing all of us, telling him his actual self. He identifies himself and he tries to, with the Dibya Drishti, he's able to make Arjuna understand his real form. And then he talks of various level of bhakti also. So how to fix his mind, to fix our mind on him, what are the different ways to do it, at different levels. So that talks of different levels of people who are at different levels, they will accept his bhakti in a different way. Maybe they can enter into his bhakti yoga in a different way. So there you have described the different levels. So this is what I have understood. Anything I have missed out?
No, you're not missed out anything at all. You perfectly understood the 2 chapters, and they are very significant chapters because of the Guruji that you follow, because he is a very staunch Vaishnavite. I have read his book, as I was telling you, and you should read it. Have you read the translation of the Gita by the Guruji which you sent me? आपने खुद पढ़ा है सर?
मेरा wife पढ़ती है. I actually try to listen when she's reading. Actually. I'm not strong in Hindi and Bengali. Both I am not. That's the problem. So
it is a super book. Okay.
And another thing I just wanted to share is this bhakti part, which all of us discuss about bhakti part. I mean, what I was trying to say is, Actually, in the 6th chapter, I was just reading whatever little I have understood. During meditation also, bhakti is also a part of meditation. There are different forms of bhakti. Like, I don't want to say about, at least in our ashram, what we do. There are a lot of people, during bhakti yoga, what they do is, they meditate on God. They visualize God. It is not the Leela of God. We say you are like, frankly saying, say, supposing you are thinking of Sri Krishna's bhakti, then you are thinking, you're going to Vrindavan, you are visualizing God. That gives you a concentration on, and you are fixing your time on God, and you are concentrating on God alone. So that gives you some sort of, what should I say? It gives you
the entire Indian musical tradition is based on visualization of form. It is all bhakti, no? Aapki aankhein sundar hain, adharam madhuram, hasitam madhuram, ye madhur hai, wo madhur hai. That is the whole beauty of the Indian musical tradition. So it is based on bhakti. You cannot be a lover of Indian music without being a bhakta. So the entire, Purandara Das, Surdas, Mirabai, Vaishnav Jan to Tene Kahiye, Jo Peer Parai Jane Re, all this is all bhakti tradition. So bhakti is the most visible form of the yoga. Which you should understand.
What I wanted to say, Raj, I just want to interrupt you. What I wanted to say is, through bhakti also, you are giving time to God, you believe, and you are able to move towards him in a different way. And even if you do not read Gita to that level, but through bhakti, you are entering into God's, you are trying to enter into God's territory on a regular basis. This is also one part of meditation, which I get this feeling.
Absolutely right. You don't see, to be a bhakta, you don't need to read the Gita. You need only bhakti. Let us be very clear, right? We are reading the Bhagavad Gita because the scripture, and we like to understand all the paths to God. But in pure bhakti, Gita or no Gita, sarva dharman parityajya, mamekam sharanam braja, sarva dharma ko chodo aur meri taraf bado. That's what Bhagavan says in the 66th shloka of the 18th chapter. Sarva dharman parityajya mamekam sharanam braja, aham tva sarva pape bhyo moksha yishyami mashaja. मैं तुम्हें सर्व पापों से मुक्त कर दूंगा, तुम बस मेरे पैर छुओ. That's the form of bhakti that he's talking about. So Bhagavad Gita is not required. No Shastra is required, because if you look at Mirabai, if you look at Surdas, they were not, or Kabir, they only had bhakti. They did not have scriptural knowledge. So all the saints whose songs are very popular are all people who are pure bhakti. They are not the Gita knowledge type. So it is. See, please understand that, depending on your nature, you will take the bhakti, you will take the yoga that appeals to you most. Now, since we happen to be a group of engineers here, we are talking through the Jnana Yoga point of view. But Bhakti Yoga is what is available to the entire world without any kind of training. सिर्फ आपको जो है प्रेम दिखाना है. It is a very, very valid form of God realization. Let us be very clear. Just because I have
Another thing I wanted to say is, actually Gita structure, it structures your thinking process also. Gita helps you to structure your thinking process and give you a logical sense to Gita, to Bhakti. So people who say that I do not believe in God, they have to, if they are reading Gita, they have to have some faith in God. Otherwise, they cannot move forward. If you are totally from zero, then don't read Gita. If you don't have faith in God, that's what I was trying to say, because some of us were also asking this question. Some people, how will you know that God is existing? If you do not believe in God, then don't read Gita. If you have belief in God, then start moving to understand Him better. So
I would like to add something. The faith or belief that comes from the experience.
Correct.
When you experience something, then only you start believing. So Gita is one of the medium through which you can proceed. जब आप खुद रियलाइज करेंगे, खुद फील करेंगे, तब आपको बिलीव भी होगा.
Exactly.
I would add here कि Vishwarup, the faith comes by experimenting, and one of the processes of reading itself. तो हमको क्या होता है, बचपन में फेथ कराया जाता है ताकि आप अल्टीमेटली जब एजुकेटेड हो तो वो एक्सपेरिमेंट करने के लिए आप योग्य हो, तो आपको फेथ डेवलप हो जाएगा. आपको एब्सोल्यूट गॉड पे बिलीफ हो, ऐसा कोई एब्सोल्यूट सेंटेंस कहने की जरूरत भी नहीं पड़ेगी. ये सब में डिबेट में जाने की जरूरत ही नहीं पड़ेगी कि गॉड है कि नहीं है, इस पे डिबेट करो. आपको क्योंकि आपको रियलिटी समझने की जरूरत है, तो इसका मतलब आपको फेथ उसी चीज पर होना है. तो आप एक्सपेरिमेंट करोगे, तो एक्सपेरिमेंट करने से पहले कुछ समझोगे तब एक्सपेरिमेंट करोगे ना, वरना टेस्ट ट्यूब टूट जाएगी तो जल जाओगे, एसिड गिर जाएगा. तो आपको एक्सपेरिमेंट करने के लिए कुछ बेसिक्स चाहिए.
सही बोला आप,
बिल्कुल सही.
तो कभी कभी ऐसा होता है, कई आश्रमों में ये कहते हैं कि आप पहले मुझ पे विश्वास करो तब मैं कुछ बताऊंगा. अरे तुम पे विश्वास करने के लिए जो हमें प्राइमरी नॉलेज चाहिए आपके बारे में, वो तो हमें दे दो ना. या हम इसलिए हम क्या होता है कि वो विश्वास पहले आपके पेरेंट्स आपको थोड़ा बहुत इम्बाइब कर देते हैं आपके अंदर, ताकि आप वो प्राइमरी नॉलेज पा जाओ, जिससे आपको खुद सेल्फ एक्सपेरिमेंटेशन कर सको. और जो सो कॉल्ड फेथ है, फेथ एक एब्सोल्यूट टर्म नहीं है कि मुझे पूरा विश्वास है, क्योंकि आप जिंदगी भर एक्सपेरिमेंटेशन में लगे रहते हो, अपने आप से स्ट्रगल करते हो हमेशा कि पता नहीं ये क्या कह रहा है, पता नहीं इसका कोई वेस्टेड इंटरेस्ट तो नहीं है जो मुझे बता रहा है. आपको मन में हमेशा ये भी डाउट आएगा, और ये आपकी नेचुरल फीलिंग है, ये फियर भी आपका नेचुरल है, तो उसको होने देते हैं. बट उसके बाद धीरे धीरे जब आप जानकारी लोगे, आप थोड़े एज ए मतलब सबमिसिव पर्सन धीरे धीरे उसमें आगे बढ़ोगे, तो यू विल अंडरस्टैंड एंड बी एबल टू शेयर इट विद अदर्स.
करेक्ट, एकदम सही बोला.
और एक बात मुझे और कहनी है छोटी सी, कि भक्ति की जो बात की जा रही है, मैं अभी इस चैप्टर को दोबारा देख रहा हूँ, इसका मीनिंग पढ़ रहा हूँ सामने, तो ये तो एक मॉरल साइंस का किताब का सेशन लग रहा है मुझे. भक्ति वैसा नहीं लग रहा है कि भक्ति के लिए अलग से टाइम स्पेयर करना है, कि आप भक्त होने आए तो अलग से टाइम स्पेयर कर, आप अपना रेगुलर ड्यूटी करते हुए जो करेक्ट चीजें हैं उनको समझोगे तो वो भी भक्ति है. और यही इनमें सेंटेंसेस में कहा गया है. उसने कह दिया कर्म फल मुझे अर्पण कर दे, तो विच मीन्स अपने डिजायर को इस सीमा पे मत ले जाओ, तो मुझे दे दो कर्म फल, ताकि ऐसा ना हो जाए कि आप डिजायर से डिस्टर्ब. उसके बाद वो कह रहा है कि आप उद्विग्न मत हो, आप दूसरों में उद्वेग मत पैदा करो, या खुद उनका मत सहो, या ईर्ष्या मत करो. ऐसे ही सेंटेंसेस कह रहा है. आशा मत रखो, जो कुशल है, पवित्र है, तटस्थ है, व्यथा रहित है, जिसके कर्म के फल में संबद्ध सब आरंभ अर्थात उद्योग के पास फेंक दिए गए, ऐसा मेरा भक्त वह मुझे प्यारा है. एक्चुअली भक्ति योग में कहीं प्रोसीजर की और उस पर टाइम देने की बात नहीं कही गई है. पूरी गीता में मुझे नहीं मिली अभी तक, होपफुली कहीं मिल जाए, किसी और ग्रंथों में होगी. मेरे ख्याल से वो भक्ति का जो कंसेप्ट है वो पुराण पे आधारित ज्यादा है. ये जो एंशिएंट ग्रंथ है, इसमें भक्ति सिंपली उन बातों की जो राइटियसनेस की बात की गई है.
So there are three categories of Hinduism. One is Vedic Hinduism, other is Vedantic Hinduism, other is पौराणिक Hinduism. तो जो आप पॉपुलर हिंदुइज्म देखते हैं वो पौराणिक है, हम जो कर रहे हैं वो वेदांतिक है.
Raj, I will add the fourth one. Fourth one is political Hinduism.
Absolutely.
Which is prevalent now.
Fourth one these days is political Hinduism.
नहीं सर मेरे पास हिंदुत्व के बड़े सारे किताब हैं, मैं एक दिन बाहर निकालूंगा मैं सावरकर के. अच्छा, आपने इनका नाम सुना है, सीताराम गोयल?
सीताराम गोयल आप और कॉन्टेक्स्ट बताएंगे तो शायद समझ में आ जाएगा.
अच्छा, राम स्वरूप, इनका नाम सुना है?
तो ये राम स्वरूप यूनिवर्सिटी है.
हाँ, राम स्वरूप और सीताराम गोयल, जरा आप गूगल कीजिए. ये जो है, these are great thinkers of Hinduism in the modern times, and they are I mean politically they are extreme right. Extreme बोले तो extreme, जबरदस्त extreme. Anyway, I think Rakesh has been, of course, Rakesh can't switch on the video, but can he can he join the discussion today?
Yes. Yes, just a short.
You can also switch on video, Rakesh. Your video is working. I can see.
No, actually, I think he's in a class or something.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in a training, so मैं अगली बार से करूँगा. So देखो, भक्ति का मतलब जो मेरा कॉन्सेप्ट है, यू नो, आई हैव गॉन इनटू ए वेरी सिंपल थिंग। सी, अपने साधारण जिंदगी में, यू नो, जब किसी से मिलते हो तुम, करेक्ट, किसी की अच्छी क्वालिटी देखे तो उस क्वालिटी को तुम अप्रिशिएट करते हो, यू नो, कि उसके पास अच्छी क्वालिटी है। देन यू नो इफ समबडी हैज स्टिल बेटर क्वालिटी, तो तुम उसको फॉलो करना चाहते हो, you know, you try to follow him because you see, you know, there is a value over there which this guy has, I want to follow. Now, you know, we reach to a next level where we see that, you know, that guy has reached to a level, you know, where you know, even if I do something, I will not be able to reach him, correct? You know, मतलब इतनी ऊंची उसकी ये है, तो उस समय क्या होता है कि then you surrender, आप उनके भक्त बन जाते हो, you know, whatever he does you start appreciating, correct, कि नहीं वो अच्छा कर रहा है, और अपने आप को वो फॉलो करने की कोशिश करना चाहते हो, जो भी कि यू नो दैट लुक्स रियली डिफिकल्ट टू रीच अप टू दैट प्लेस। तो उस समय जो मन में जो एक ये उठता है, विचार उठता है, वो विचार एक भक्ति का विचार है, कि मतलब हम वहां तक नहीं पहुंच सकते हैं, लेकिन हम उसके भक्त हो गए, मतलब आई विल फॉलो हिज ट्रैक, मैं उसके रास्ते पे चलूंगा, वहां तक पहुंचने की कोशिश करूंगा, पहुंच गया तो ठीक है, बट अदरवाइज इट्स ए वेरी डिफिकल्ट टर्रेन। तो जब आदमी उस लेवल तक पहुंच जाता है तो उसके अंदर एक भक्ति की भावना अपने आप जागृत हो जाती है। तो यू नो दैट इज व्हाट आई कॉल इट भक्ति, यू नो, इन प्रैक्टिकल टर्म्स। तो अब इसको इससे जोड़ के देखो, तो जब हम सोचने लगते हैं कृष्णा के बारे में या भगवान के बारे में, या जो भी अपना कॉन्सेप्ट है, बिलीफ है, फेथ है, तो at some point of time, you know, it looks, you know, it would have been very good if I would have reached over there. लेकिन अगर लगता है कि हम वहाँ नहीं पहुँच सकते हैं, तो हम उसके भक्त बन जाते हैं, उसको फॉलो करना शुरू करते हैं। I mean, you know, this is how I, you know, my concept of simple bhakti is.
Yeah, and then so क्या होता है इसमें, ठीक, I mean, obviously there must be some ideal, you know, some aspiration जो कि उसके पास है, जिसके हम भक्त हैं। But what happens is in the process of bhakti, slowly एक osmosis होता है कि हाँ, so it kind of percolates down to you, and that is the beauty of bhakti. नहीं तो bhakti will only be looking at the mountain top but not reaching the mountain. ना we भक्त बनते हैं, उनके बारे में हम सोचते रहते हैं, और उनके जो क्वालिटीज हैं वो slowly हम तक पहुंच जाते हैं. So that is the beauty of bhakti. So I would like to share something that I was reading this morning. But anyway, go ahead, Rakesh. You had some other thoughts.
No. I just, you know, I just wanted to put it, you know, my simple thought of.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Rajshekhar, I have a confusion.
Yeah.
About hierarchy of Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, then Brahman, then Krishna जी हैं, विष्णु का स्वरूप है, तो थोड़ा confusion हो रहा है मेरे को. When we call it a cosmic form, तो उसमें महाकाल भी आ रहा है और क्रिएशन भी आ रहा है, एंड लोग आ रहे हैं, जा रहे हैं, मतलब सृष्टि चल रही है पूरी. एंड व्हेन वी से कृष्णा इज अ फॉर्म ऑफ, तो कृष्णा का लेवल ऊपर है या कृष्णा का लेवल बीच में, या दिस इज ऑल टुगेदर. फिर उसके बाद होता है कि सम पीपल फॉलो वैष्णव कृष्णा, दैट इज वैष्णवाइट, एंड सम शैवाइट. तो थोड़ा सा कंफ्यूजन हो रहा है हायरार्की में मेरे को.
तो एक्चुअली हमें हायरार्की का वर्ड ड्रॉप कर देना चाहिए. ओके. और अब एक ही चीज मानिए कि एक इंटेंजिबल है और एक टैंजिबल है, अव्यक्त है और व्यक्त है. अव्यक्त को ब्रह्मन कहते हैं. अब जो भी व्यक्त है उसको शिवा कह सकते हैं, विष्णु कह सकते हैं, कृष्ण कह सकते हैं, देवी कह सकते हैं, कुमार कह सकते हैं, गणेश कह सकते हैं, आपको जो दिल में आए कह दो. लेकिन
वो सारे दिख रहे हैं कॉस्मिक फॉर्म में, सारे दिख रहे हैं.
तो आपने उनको एक जो है पर्सोना दे दिया है, तो सब व्यक्त है. उन सब के पीछे ब्रह्म है जो आपको कभी दिखेंगे नहीं. ब्रह्मण, जिसको ब्रह्मण बोलते हैं इन द लैंग्वेज ऑफ द भगवद गीता. इसको जो है
ब्रह्मण,
हाँ, बेसिकली. सो हायरार्की इज टू फोल्ड, ब्रह्मण और बाकी सब. लेकिन अगर आप इस्कॉन वाले को जाके ऐसे बोलेगे, वो तुम्हारा डंडा लेके तुम्हारे सिर पे मारेगा.
नहीं, इसीलिए तो मेरे को कंफ्यूजन हो रहा है.
नहीं. सो यू सी व्हाट हैपेंस इज, जब मैं भक्त हूं तो मैं, इट इज अ पार्ट ऑफ द हिंदू ट्रेडिशन कि जब मैं भक्त हूं कृष्ण का या शिव का या देवी का, तो मैं ऐसे मान के चलता हूं कि जो आकार है वो निराकार भी है, माने जो ब्रह्म है वो ही विष्णु है, ब्रह्म है वो ही गणेश जी हैं, ब्रह्म है वो ही देवी जी हैं। इतना हमें लैटिट्यूड दिया जाता है, लेकिन हकीकत में जब आप ज्ञान योग की दृष्टि से देखेंगे तो ब्रह्म जो ब्रह्म है और बाकी सब उसके मैनिफेस्टेशंस हैं, बाकी सब उसके आकार हैं। लेकिन अगर आप किसी भक्त को ऐसे बोलेंगे, वो आपको, क्योंकि उसने सालों भर अपने दिमाग को इस चैनल में लगा दिया है कि कृष्ण ही व्यक्त हैं और अव्यक्त भी हैं, शिव ही व्यक्त हैं और अव्यक्त भी हैं, तो उनको जाके अगर आप बोलोगे कि भाई नहीं जी अव्यक्त तो अलग हैं और शिव जी तो मैनिफेस्टेशन है या विष्णु मैनिफेस्टेशन है, तो दे फील वेरी बैड एंड देन यू शुड रीड इस्कॉन का जो कमेंट्री है भगवत गीता का, उसमें उनको जो है शंकराचार्य के मायने तो बहुत दिक्कत होती है उनको, तो उसमें तो लेफ्ट राइट एंड सेंटर मायावादी शंकराचार्य के अनुयायियों से आप दूर रहिए, ऐसा क्लियरली कहा गया है। तो जैसे मैंने पहले कहा था, अगर आपको कोई इस्कॉन से आके, ये मेरा पर्सनल एक्सपीरियंस है, कोई इस्कॉन से आके आपको बहुत तंग करेगा, किताब खरीदो, मेंबर बन जाओ, तो आप उसको स्ट्रेट बोल दो मैं मायावादी शंकराचार्य का शिष्य हूँ, वो आपको देख के छोड़ के भाग जाएगा। मेरे साथ ऐसे ही हुआ। मैंने नेहरू प्लेस में जो दिल्ली में जो इस्कॉन का टेम्पल है वहां पर मैं गया था, मेरे पास इस्कॉन के सारे बुक्स हैं, पुराने एडिशन, तो मेरे पीछे एक बंदा पड़ गया, सर ये खरीदो ये खरीदो। मैंने कहा भाई मेरे पास है, पुराना एडिशन है, नए एडिशन में कुछ अगर नया है तो बोलो, नहीं तो मैं नहीं लूंगा। नहीं 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 सर आप लीजिए, आप देखने में भक्त लगते हैं। तो यार परेशान करने लग गया। तो फिर मुझे याद आया कि मैंने भगवत गीता के एक श्लोक में श्रीला प्रभुपाद का कमेंट पढ़ा, मायावादी शंकराचार्य ऐसा, उनसे दूर रहो। तो मैंने कहा मैं मायावादी शंकराचार्य का शिष्य एकदम छोड़े भाग गया। तो
एक्सटेंडिंग टू योर पॉइंट, मैंने अभी चूंकि कल ही 9th चैप्टर को काफी डिटेल में समझने की कोशिश की, तो उसमें साफ साफ लिखा हुआ है जो अभी आप पॉइंट बोल रहे हो कि उसमें तू किसी भी देवता की पूजा करते हो तो भी मेरी ही करते हो, ये लिखा गया है। तो इसलिए सबको इक्वेट कर दिया गया एक साथ, और यहाँ तक कि भी अगर तुम किसी और की भी करते हो तब भी मेरी ही करते हो। मतलब इवन और रिलीजन को भी एक तरह से इक्वेट कर दिया गया है। मतलब इफ यू हैव ए फीलिंग ऑफ कि मुझे जो है किसी सुप्रीम के लिए कुछ करना है, तो उसने आपने आइकॉन कोई भी बनाया हो, आइकॉन आपने फिजिकल आइकॉन कोई भी बनाया हो, तो इसलिए उनसे मतलब नहीं है। इसलिए काफी एब्सोल्यूट टर्म में गीता में बात की गई है।
नहीं, दैट्स ट्रू, आई हैव आल्सो गॉन थ्रू दैट। दूसरा ये शैवाइट में व्हाट इज द डिफरेंस बिटवीन शैवाइट एंड वैष्णवाइट?
बस ये सब नाम का फर्क है और कुछ फर्क नहीं है। पर लेकिन अगर आप जब आप डीप जाते हो तो see the difference is not fundamental, the difference is only in the minds of the followers. शिव और विष्णु में कोई फर्क नहीं है, दोनों एक ही हैं, एस्पेक्ट है बस।
बट वो शैवाइट कहेंगे कि महादेव ही सबसे बड़े देवता, उन्होंने महादेव नाम इसलिए रखा है कि सबसे बड़े देवता हमारे हैं।
हाँ, शिव पुराण पढ़िए, उसमें तो महादेव महादेव त्रिकाल महादेव, बस उसी का। आप जो है हाँ, आप जो है ये पढ़िए भागवतम पढ़िए तो कृष्ण गोविंद राधे 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 लगे रहेंगे। तो ये सब एट वन लेवल
कोई पूजा नहीं करता।
हाँ हाँ, अरे सर वैष्णवाइट तो ऐसे कट्टर होते हैं कि वो शिव की पूजा नहीं करेंगे, गणेश की पूजा नहीं करेंगे, देवी की पूजा नहीं करेंगे, कुमार की पूजा नहीं करेंगे, नहीं सिर्फ विष्णु बड़े हैं। तो दिस इज ऑल
नहीं, ब्रह्मा की पूजा नहीं करता कोई।
ब्रह्मा की डेफिनेटली ब्रह्मा की पूजा नहीं होती, फॉर द सिंपल रीजन दैट दो ही मंदिर हैं ब्रह्मा के, एक मेरे ख्याल से राजस्थान में है और एक कहीं और पुष्कर। इसलिए कि ये जो संसार चक्र है इसके प्रवर्तक सिर्फ ब्रह्मा जी हैं, और हम सब जो हैं यहाँ फंसे हुए हैं ब्रह्मा जी की तरफ से, इसलिए उनकी पूजा नहीं की जाती। हमारे बचाने वाले को और हमको यहाँ से निकालने वाले की पूजा की जाती है, दैट इज विष्णु एंड शिवा। दैट्स द लॉजिक जो हमें यहाँ पे जो है डाला है। So फॉर एग्जाम्पल इफ यू टेक सत्व रजस तमस, रजस is the nature of Brahma because he's always active in creating. Sattva is the nature of Vishnu because he's always active in protecting. And Tamas is the nature of Shiva because he's active in destroying. He will destroy your ignorance. He will destroy your... तो ये एक पौराणिक लॉजिक है. वेदांता में ऐसा कोई फर्क नहीं मानते.
इन तीनों ऊपर चढ़े गुणातीत बन गए तो ब्रह्मन के पास पहुंच गए. हाँ,
बस खत्म कहानी. बस we go beyond the system. No, system के अंदर तो बाकी लोग फंसे हैं. You go beyond the system. Super system, meta system कर दो ना, खत्म कर. मेटा सिस्टम इज ब्रह्मन और तुम जो है सब सिस्टम में फंसे हो, शिवा सब सिस्टम में या कृष्णा सब सिस्टम में फंसे हो. मत फंसो.
क्वेश्चन है आज के सेशन से रिलेटेड. क्वेश्चन इज रिलेटेड टू चैप्टर 11. थोड़ा सा चैप्टर 11 का मतलब ओवरऑल मॉडर्न पर्सपेक्टिव कैसे होगा, कैसे समझाया जाएगा, ये थोड़ा सा इस पे हाईलाइट करो बिकॉज कॉस्मिक फॉर्म हम लोगों से बियॉन्ड की बात लगती है. तो मॉडर्न पर्सपेक्टिव में हम इसको किस तरह से देखें?
Yeah, so I had tried to introduce a little bit of the modern perspective by talking about meta system, system and subsystem. That's the way we need to understand it. Because you see the whole universe is operative because of the Sat Chit and Anand. Sat Chit and Anand is the very basic Brahman characteristic. But the universe is not only Sat Chit and Anand. You see very visible differences. You see galaxies, you see white dwarfs, black holes, red giants in modern terminology. So how will you understand all this together? So the imagery that you have in the 11th chapter is ancient imagery, but modern imagery can be आदित्य बोले तो कितने सारे गैलेक्सी हैं, नेबुला हैं. तो इस सब के पीछे what is the intelligence behind all this? So if you are, so what Krishna is trying to do here is he's trying to say that I am both cosmologist, astrophysicist, psychologist, time manager. I am all the professions, modern professions put together, and I'm trying to give you a picture of how these professions relate to each other in terms of their understanding of the cosmos. So if a psychologist were to look at the world, he would say something. If a metallurgist were to look at the world, he would say something. So if all the professions of the world were to look at the world and the universe, what would they say? So in simpler terms, in Hindu mythology or Hindu cosmology, you have Adityas, Vasus, Rudras, Maruts, which are all representative of the forces of the universe. So all that is all within one boundary. They are not loosely running away. They are all integrated and they do not overlap in function. So black hole will behave like a black hole. It will not behave like something else. So what is it that makes the sun behave like the sun every day? Why does it not collapse? So what we say in the Hindu tradition, there is an intelligence. So intelligence ka jo aakar hai, that is what is being shown in the 11th chapter. This is the best that I have understood because I too was always struggling with the 11th chapter because in modern terms, it does not make sense. But it makes a lot of sense if you interpret the terms in a modern way. So you have to look at cosmology and because the brightest scientists of the world are always engaged in cosmology. Stephen Hawking to Roger Penrose, who got the Nobel Prize last year for physics, who was actually an associate of Stephen Hawking. So most of the physics and physicists who get Nobel Prizes are either particle physics at a microscopic level or extra cosmic astrophysics. So that's the way. So to explain this to a younger audience, you can introduce terminology from cosmology, astrophysics, stellar descriptions, black holes, and say that each of this is like, Aditya, Vasu, Marut, these were the ancient ways of categorizing phenomena.
इसमें ऐसा लगता है, इसमें आर्गुमेंट ये आता है फिर कि इट लुक्स लाइक ए पोस्ट थॉट कि हमने आजकल के वर्ड्स को पुराने एंशिएंट इमेजरी से जानबूझ के कनेक्ट कर रहे हैं ताकि हम साइंटिफिक लगे। हम ऐसा जताना चाह रहे हैं कि हम साइंटिफिक हैं, इसलिए हम जानबूझ के ऐसे कनेक्शन कर रहे हैं।
So the way to handle that is to first give the traditional explanation. If someone asks you how is it connected, like you've asked, then you give this. If you start with this, then your point is very valid. You know, you're trying to force fit a modern terminology into ancient terminology, right? We are not doing that. We are trying to interpret ancient terminology the best way a modern mind can understand. That is how you should put it. A modern mind.
We are connected with modern technology, modern terminology. Correct. Only. So
correct.
We can understand only in the language of modern terminology.
Yes. Yes.
Traditional will be understanding will be difficult.
Yeah. So
if we can link from the start from the modern terminology and then go to topic, that would be better way.
It depends on the audience. You know, see, if you have a young audience, I would say it depends on the audience. If you have a mature audience, they will understand. They will not misinterpret your modern terminology. You know, they understand there is something behind that. Whereas if you're looking at a very young audience, which is non-believing, then if you start with modern terminology, then since, you know, Sunilji deals with younger audiences who are always critical of what you say, then if you begin with modern terminology, they may say force fit. So you have to see, you have to have a good mastery of both ancient and modern. That much is what I would say. So that you can flip between one and the other depending upon the audience. So it is not easy because you have to be fairly well-read and well-grounded in both. In fact, मैं आपको क्या करूँगा? I will send you the link of the Indian Institute of Scientific Heritage. This is, I will send it in the group. This is a scientist called Gopalakrishnan, who's some MA, MSc, and then PhD and all. And he has actually studied ancient wisdom and modern science very well because he was a director in the Regional Research Laboratory, CSIR lab in Trivandrum. मैं link भेजता हूँ. He has a number of interesting articles which you can read, which look at the same idea of ancient, modern, modern, ancient, and how to understand the two.
My small point was this only कि मुझे ऐसा भी लगा जब मैं गीता का फ्लो पढ़ रहा हूँ तो उसमें ऐसा महसूस हो रहा है कि अर्जुन सब बातें टीचर की सुन भी रहा है, क्वेश्चन भी पूछ रहा है, बट अर्जुन को समझ में आ रहा है ये कहीं हाईलाइट नहीं हो रहा है.
No, you're right. So see,
मुझे लगा कि शायद कृष्ण ने अपना विराट रूप वो उसको कन्विंस करने के लिए भी दिखाया है.
No, yes and no. I will tell you the reason why. Because if you look at the first 4 shlokas of the 11th chapter, what does he say? Our first 4 shlokas देखिए. Out of the desire to bless me, Mad Anugrahaya, you have spoken the secret word of the highest spiritual existence. And Arjuna says, Isse mera jo hai, moho ayam vigato mama. And to describe his understandings, मैंने कहा ना status report दे रहा है. The origin, bhava, the destruction, apyayu of beings has been heard by me in detail from you, as well as your inexhaustible greatness. Okay. And he says, no, आपने जो अपने बारे में कहा वो एकदम सही है. That is the 3rd shloka. So the 2nd and 3rd shloka indicate that Arjuna has understood all that was told till chapter 10. Then he says further, I need to have a more integrated understanding. Therefore, if you think, Manya say, it is possible for me, yadi, you know, chakshum maya drishtum tato tvam darshaya, aap apna jo hai roop dikhaiye. So 2 and 3 indicate that he has understood. 4th one is a request.
तो मुझे फिर इसको ऐसे रिफ्रेश करना चाहिए बात को कि अर्जुन ने ये तो बताया कि मुझे कुछ समझ में आया है, but he wanted to know more.
Correct. I'll put it that way. Yes, that is the correct thing.
तो उसको लगा कि मतलब मेरे टीचर के पास और बहुत ज्यादा कुछ है, तो मैं उससे वो भी समझने की कोशिश करूं. तो टीचर ने कहा अच्छा ओके, I made it possible for you to जितना तुम्हारा सिलेबस में है उससे बाहर भी बताता हूं.
No, also, you see, a very interesting discussion arose when I was conducting this for my group, which is, you see, you can ask a question based on some knowledge that you have. You cannot ask a question of totally something unknown. So the question is, how did Arjuna know that there is something called cosmic form? So the answer to that lies in, जब श्री भगवान जो है संधि करने गए थे कौरवों के दरबार में, तो वहां पर जो है जब दुर्योधन ने उनको पकड़ने की कोशिश की, तब उन्होंने अपना विश्वरूप दर्शन भी दिखाया. So Arjuna has heard of that, and then probably because of that he thinks it is the next level of understanding. So this is one explanation. I'm not saying it's the final one. So this is one explanation about why he's asking for Vishwarupa Darshan without knowing that if you have learned till level 1, you will only know there's a level 2, but you will not say, teach me this in level 2. Correct. So how did
इसका मतलब डिस्कोर्सेस हम रिलीजियस स्पेस में देखते हैं, इसके डिस्कोर्सेस विराट रूप के, तो वे एक तरह से चमत्कार की तरह प्रेजेंट किए जाते हैं ये बातें.
करेक्ट, दैट इज
तो
रॉन्ग.
हम चमत्कार से क्या होता है, चमत्कार को फिर दूर से नमस्कार करने का मन करता है, तो उसके डिटेल में जाने का फिर हम लोगों को वो नहीं हो पाता है.
See, that's the whole problem with these traditional interpretations. See, that is the reason why I stay away from very traditional interpretation, especially some of the Hindi interpretation, जैसे स्वामी रामसुख दास हैं, उनका बहुत अच्छा है, but some of them are not very logical. Okay, even if you take some of the traditional commentators in any language for that matter, they are not logical. So you must go, as I keep saying, you must go for people who are logical, who at least एक reasoning होता है, एक thread होता है. See, whether you accept that thread is a different matter, but at least from the starting point of the reasoning till they come to 11th chapter, एक logic से flow कर रहे हैं, which is helpful. Otherwise, it becomes very difficult. You know, usually the criticism of the 11th chapter is ये black magic है, witchcraft है, चमत्कार है, उल्लू बनाने के लिए. अर्जुन तो मान नहीं रहा था, उसको बस जादू टोना कर दिया और बना दिया उसको,
दे दिया, दिव्य चक्षु दे दिया. मैं कह रहा था तमस गुण वाले को भी विश्वरूप के दर्शन हो सकते हैं. दुर्योधन को दर्शन हुए भाई.
बिल्कुल सर, उसको हुए, लेकिन उसको समझ में नहीं आया.
मगर उसके बगैर दिव्य चक्षु दिए ना.
हाँ, तो but then he takes it to be black magic. So if you read the Mahabharata, he says, "Arey, what, Krishna is only a black magic fellow. He did some black magic and he's doing the same. So what will he do in the Mahabharata war?" That was the typical sort of thought process. But anyway, this is a fascinating chapter actually. It's a wonderful chapter. But we need to understand it in the proper context. And it is only more modern interpretation. In fact, I must share with you, I mean, every interpretation is a fabulous interpretation according to me. एक lawyer थे इलाहाबाद हाई कोर्ट में, उनका नाम है निहाल चंद वैश्य. ठीक है, इनके जो क्वालिफिकेशंस हैं जबरदस्त हैं. I mean, he died long ago, but he has, this is also one of the earlier commentaries. इनके qualifications क्या हैं देखिए. Actually, you know, Sunil, we must talk to Sanjay Basu. Sanjay Basu's grandfather may know this person.
Sure.
Okay. So I tell you, boss, this is a rare book. You know, it is published by Bhavans. Abhi milta hai, nahi malum. But being a lawyer, he has very logically analyzed Vishwarupa Darshan and all the things. Very logical, very logical. Lawyers are the best people to read the Bhagavad Gita because they will not. So he has actually given very many non-traditional explanations. Non-traditional, which, I mean, I will give you an example. Let me take Vishwarupa. Wait, boss, ये तो हम बात करते ही हैं. What's the time? 1 o'clock ना? अच्छा boss, मुझे मेरी बीवी बुला रही है खाना खाने के लिए. खाने का time हो गया. So what we will do is, of course, next week we'll take a break because it's Diwali. Is that right? Is it Diwali for you guys on Friday? Or we can...
Yeah.
So we'll take a break next week, but we will catch up the week later, which would be, what date would it be? So 4th, we are taking 5th there. We will catch up on 12th then.
Yeah.
Right, we'll do that. In the meantime, I will...
3 session चाहिए होंगे हम लोगों को. 13, 14 and 15, 16, 17, 18.
Yeah, 3 sessions चाहिए. Yeah, because we will stick to two chapters, because in this particular session we spent a lot of time on the 11th chapter, justifiably so, because it's a important chapter.
And 18 chapter also require a lot of time, I think, believe.
No, that requires one full session actually. 18 chapter we should not reduce in terms of.
Possibly
within this year, calendar year, we should finish the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah, we should be able to finish Bhagavad Gita. In fact, I have also put together tentative curriculum of Upanishads. क्या क्या करना है? Put it together.
Okay. तो अभी तुम busy रखने वाले हो हम लोगों को. ना हम तुम्हें छोड़ेंगे ना तुम हमें छोड़ोगे.
भाई ये तो हमारी ही डिमांड थी कि उपनिषद पे करें.
बिल्कुल.
So we've done that. So yeah. So thanks, Rakesh. I think now you are free of your training, right? So you can.
Yes, this is the lunch time. So I think.
Okay.
So everybody's lunch time.
Good.
Everybody's lunch time. So we will catch up then on the 12th. And in the meantime, I think what you and me can do, Rakesh, is we can be in touch so that
sure.
I think you should come down to my house. You should come down to my house because then you'll get a flavor of the that I have, and then it'll be easier for you to sort of give your thoughts because what's there. And I think there's a plan of Sunil also to come down. So you guys are.
That will be somewhere after Diwali.
After Diwali is what I was thinking. Because I was telling my wife, she was saying, boss, Diwali ke baad. So I understand that after Diwali would be fine.
No, we do it after Diwali.
Yeah, we'll do it after Diwali.
And then,
so do that.
Yeah, and then there is another thing. That consolidation of the previous things. Correct.
Yeah, so I'll have a conversation with you on that because it is just a sequence of the entire WhatsApp conversation. So what is the best format to put that? I'll just have a word. Okay?
Sure.
We'll do that.
Sure.
Okay, boss. Take care.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
And happy Diwali to everybody.
Bye.
Happy Diwali.
Yes. Happy Diwali. Happy Diwali.